New Mexico Territory, 1871. The scorching summer sun beat down mercilessly on the rugged landscape where Apache lands met settler territories. In these contested borderlands, blood often stained the dust, sometimes from justice, sometimes from vengeance, but always leaving scars deeper than the canyons that cut through the terrain. Travis Hollister believed with his whole heart that the frontier had no room for tenderness. The harsh landscape demanded harsh men, and he'd learned early that attachment was a luxury that got people killed. At 25, he'd already seen enough death to know that survival meant keeping your distance and your wits sharp. The only reliable companion was the Colt revolver at his hip and the horse beneath him. A man who puts down roots is just waiting to be uprooted, Travis would say whenever the subject of settling down came up around campfires. His handsome face would harden then, green eyes reflecting firelight but revealing nothing of the pain behind them. He was tall and lean from years in the saddle, with sandy brown hair that curled slightly when it grew too long. His companions often remarked that a face like his belonged in a fancy Boston drawing room, not weathering under a cowboy hat, but Travis knew better. The frontier had claimed him, body and soul. What Travis wanted was simple enough: to drive cattle, earn his pay, and move on before anyone got close enough to become a liability. What he needed, though he would deny it fiercely, was someone to prove that, even in this unforgiving land, there was room for something beyond mere survival. That spring, Travis had signed on with the Henderson outfit, driving cattle north from the border territories. The pay was good, but the route was treacherous, cutting through lands where Apache raids had intensified following broken treaties and military incursions. 2 weeks into the drive, disaster struck near the Mescalero foothills. The attack came at dawn. 15 Apache warriors descended on their camp, while most of the men were still rolling out of their bedrolls. Travis had been on watch, giving him just enough time to sound the alarm before the first arrows flew. The battle was brief but bloody. When it ended, 3 cowboys lay dead, and the Henderson outfit had somehow captured 2 young Apache girls who had been traveling with the war party. The trail boss, a hard man named Buckley, spat tobacco juice into the dust and regarded their captives with cold calculation. Those savages will be back for these 2. Worth more to us alive than dead. The girls couldn't have been more than 14 or 15, their dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and defiance. One had a slight wound on her arm where a bullet had grazed her. "What exactly are you planning, Buckley?" Travis asked, not liking the direction of the man's thoughts. "Leverage," Buckley said simply. "Insurance for the rest of this drive, but someone's got to be responsible for them. Can't have them with the main group, too risky if their people attack again." Travis felt the eyes of the entire outfit turn toward him. As the youngest and newest hire, he often got the worst assignments. But this wasn't mucking stalls or riding drag. "You want me to guard them, while you all continue the drive?" Travis's voice was incredulous. Buckley nodded, lighting a cigar. "Take them to Fort Sumner. Army will pay bounty for Apache prisoners. Meet us in Santa Fe when you're done." "That's Apache territory between here and Sumner. I'd be riding straight through a hornet's nest." Buckley smiled without humor. "That's why I'm offering you double wages for this detour, Hollister, plus the Army bounty." Travis looked at the captive girls again. The older one met his gaze with such hatred that he almost flinched. He needed the money. He'd been saving to buy his own small spread someday, though he rarely admitted this dream to anyone. But this felt wrong in ways he couldn't articulate. "And if I refuse?" Travis asked quietly. Buckley's face hardened. "Then you can collect your pay right now and ride on." But word travels fast about men who can't be counted on when things get tough. Travis knew he was trapped. In the unwritten code of the frontier, reliability was everything. Break that code and no outfit would hire you again. He'd be reduced to the lowest jobs, mucking stalls in some frontier town where the only future was a bullet in a saloon brawl or slow death from cheap whiskey. "I'll do it," he said finally. "But I don't hold with mistreating prisoners. They ride proper horses, not dragged behind." Buckley laughed. "Look at you, all concerned for some Apache girls. They'd scalp you without blinking, boy." "Maybe so. But I'm not them." That night, as Travis sat away from the main campfire, keeping watch over the bound captives, the younger girl began to cough violently. He approached cautiously, offering a canteen of water. The older girl hissed something in Apache, clearly warning her companion against accepting anything from him. "It's just water," Travis said, though he knew they probably didn't understand English. He took a deliberate sip to show it wasn't poisoned, then offered it again. The younger girl took it this time, drinking greedily before the older one knocked it away with her shoulder, spilling the remaining water into the dust. Travis sighed. "That's real smart. We've got 3 days' ride ahead and water's scarce." He picked up the canteen and walked back to his bedroll. He left at dawn the next day, the two girls mounted on spare horses, their hands bound to the saddle horns but with enough slack to hold reins. Travis knew the risk he was taking. If the Apache war party caught up with him, his death would be slow and agonizing. If the girls escaped, his reputation would be ruined and the money he desperately needed would vanish. They rode east toward Fort Sumner, the landscape growing increasingly harsh and desolate. By midday, the younger girl was swaying in her saddle, her face flushed with fever from her wound, which had clearly become infected. "We need to stop," Travis said, more to himself than to them. He found a small grove of cottonwoods near a trickling stream, barely enough water but better than nothing. As he helped the younger girl down, she collapsed against him, burning with fever. The older girl watched with naked hostility as Travis examined the wound. It was angry and swollen, streaks of infection spreading up her arm. Without treatment, she would likely die. Travis rummaged in his saddlebags and found a small packet of herbs and a bottle of whiskey, a crude medicine kit he'd learned to carry after seeing too many men die from minor wounds gone bad. He cleaned the wound with whiskey, wincing at the girl's screams, then applied a poultice of herbs. "You try to help now," the older girl suddenly spoke in halting English. "After you take us prisoner." Travis looked up in surprise. "You speak English?" "Some missionaries teach before soldiers kill them." Her black eyes burned with accusation. "You kill us at fort." "No," Travis said, wrapping a clean cloth around the younger girl's arm. "The army doesn't kill prisoners. They'll probably put you on a reservation." "Reservation is death, slow death." She spat the words. Travis couldn't argue with that. He'd seen the reservations, the pitiful conditions, the slow starvation as people used to roaming free were penned in like cattle. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to change the subject. She stared at him silently for a long moment before answering. "Nasha, she is Taluta, my sister." "I'm Travis." He secured the bandage and helped Taluta to a more comfortable position in the shade. "The fever should break by morning if we're lucky." "If not lucky," Nasha challenged. Travis met her gaze directly. "Then I bury her and take you alone to Fort Sumner." They camped there that night, Travis keeping a vigilant watch for both Apache pursuers and any attempt at escape. When Taluta's fever worsened near midnight, he found himself repeatedly bathing her forehead with cool water from the stream, aware of Nasha's watchful gaze. "Why you help?" Nasha asked as dawn approached and Taluta's fever finally began to break. "Because she's a person," Travis replied simply, "and I don't hold with letting people die if I can help it." Nasha studied him with those piercing eyes. "You different from other white men." "Not different enough," Travis said, standing up to prepare for another day's journey. "I'm still taking you to Fort Sumner." They traveled slowly that day, mindful of Taluta's condition. By nightfall, Travis estimated they'd covered less than half the distance they should have. At this rate, the Apache war party would surely catch up, or they'd run out of provisions. The decision came to him as they made camp that night beneath a sky blazing with stars. He couldn't do it. He couldn't deliver these girls to a fate that was, as Nasha had said, a slow death, but neither could he simply let them go, not when his own future hung in the balance. "There's a settlement 2 days west of here," he told Nasha as they sat by the small fire. "Valleydale, small place. They got a healer there who might help your sister better than I can." "You take us to different fort." Nasha's suspicion was evident. "No fort, just a place where maybe we can figure something else out." Nasha narrowed her eyes. "Why you change direction?" Travis stared into the fire. "Because I made a promise to deliver you safely, never said where exactly." The next morning they turned west, Travis acutely aware that he was risking everything on an instinct he couldn't explain. Taluta was stronger but still weak, and Nasha watched him constantly, her distrust evident in every glance. Late on the second day, the settlement of Valleydale appeared on the horizon, a small cluster of buildings nestled in a valley that somehow managed to be green amid the surrounding desert. As they approached, Travis felt Nasha tense beside him. "Remember," he said quietly, "you're under my protection. Anyone gives you trouble, they answer to me." The town consisted of a main street with a general store, a saloon, a small church, and perhaps 24 homes spread out along the valley floor. Travis led them directly to a small house at the edge of town, with a sign that read Dr. M. Foster, Physician. The door opened before Travis could knock, revealing a woman in her 40s with graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes widened at the sight of the Apache girls. "Travis Hollister," he introduced himself. "I've got a girl here with an infected wound that needs tending." The woman's gaze softened as it fell on Taluda. "Bring her inside, I'm Doctor Margaret Foster." "A lady doctor?" Travis couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. Dr. Foster's mouth twitched. "Yes, Mr. Hollister, we do exist. Now bring that child inside before she falls off that horse." The doctor's house was small but meticulously clean. She directed Travis to place Taluda on a narrow examination table while Nasha hovered protectively nearby. "What happened?" Dr. Foster asked, already cutting away the bandage Travis had applied. "Bullet graze that got infected." "I cleaned it best I could, but—" "You did well," the doctor said, examining the wound. "The infection is still there but contained. With proper treatment, she should recover fully." She looked up at Travis sharply. "Now perhaps you'd like to explain why you're traveling with two bound Apache girls." Travis shifted uncomfortably. "It's a long story." "I imagine it is." Dr. Foster turned to Nasha. "I'm going to help your sister. You can stay right here beside her." Nasha nodded, never taking her eyes off Taluda. The doctor worked efficiently, cleaning the wound more thoroughly than Travis had been able to, applying a strong-smelling ointment and wrapping it with clean bandages. She then mixed a powder into a cup of water and helped Taluda drink it. "For the fever and pain," she explained. "She needs rest now, and so do you," she added, looking at Nasha, whose exhaustion was evident despite her determined vigilance. "Can they stay here?" Travis asked. "Just for the night?" "I can pay." Dr. Foster studied him for a long moment. "They can stay in the back room. As for payment, we'll discuss that after you tell me the truth of how you came to be traveling with these girls." Over coffee in the doctor's small kitchen, Travis explained everything. The cattle drive, the Apache attack, his assignment to deliver the girls to Fort Sumner, and his growing doubt about the morality of that mission. "So you decided to bring them here instead," Dr. Foster said when he finished. "Why?" "I don't rightly know," Travis admitted. "I just knew I couldn't take them to that fort." "And what do you plan to do now? You can't exactly return to your outfit empty-handed." Travis stared into his coffee. "I haven't figured that part out yet." Dr. Foster sighed. "Well, you did the right thing bringing them here. Taluda needs at least a few days of rest before she should travel again." She stood up. "You can take the cot in my surgery tonight. Tomorrow, you should speak with Virginia Faulkner at the general store. If anyone can help you figure out your next step, it's her." "Thank you, doctor," Travis said, surprised by the woman's kindness to a stranger who'd arrived with such unusual companions. "Don't thank me yet, Mr. Hollister. You've started something here that won't be easily resolved." Travis slept poorly that night, his dreams filled with pursuing Apache warriors and the accusing faces of the Henderson outfit. He woke at dawn, checking first on the girls, both still sleeping soundly, before making his way to the town's general store. Valleydale was just beginning to stir as Travis walked down the main street. The morning was cool, the sun not yet high enough to burn away the night's chill. The general store was already open, a bell tinkling softly as Travis entered. The woman behind the counter looked up from where she was arranging a display of canned goods. She couldn't have been more than 22 or 23, with chestnut brown hair pulled back in a practical bun and warm hazel eyes that widened slightly as Travis entered. She wore a simple blue dress with a practical white apron over it. "Good morning," she greeted him with a smile that transformed her from pretty to beautiful. "You must be Dr. Foster's visitor. She sent word you might be coming by." Travis removed his hat, suddenly conscious of his trail-worn appearance. "Travis Hollister, ma'am, and you must be Miss Faulkner." "Virginia Faulkner, yes, but please call me Virginia." Miss Faulkner makes me sound like my mother. She came out from behind the counter and extended her hand. Dr. Foster said you might need some help. Travis took her hand, noticing both its softness and the calluses that spoke of actual work. I'm in something of a difficult situation, ma'am, Virginia. She gestured to a small sitting area at the back of the store with 2 chairs. Why don't you tell me about it? The morning rush won't start for another hour. As they sat, Travis found himself telling Virginia everything, just as he had told Dr. Foster. There was something about her direct gaze and attentive listening that made the words flow more easily than he expected. So now I've got 2 Apache girls, one recovering from a wound and no idea what to do next, he concluded. I can't take them to Fort Sumner, but I can't exactly set them free either, not if I ever want to work as a cowhand again. Virginia was quiet for a moment, considering. Valleydale is different from most frontier towns, Mr. Hollister. Travis, please. She smiled. Travis. This settlement was founded by people seeking a different way of living out here, one based on cooperation rather than conflict. We trade peacefully with several of the local tribes, including some Apache bands. You're saying you might be able to help get these girls back to their people? Travis felt a spark of hope. Possibly. But it would take time and trust would need to be established. She leaned forward. In the meantime, you need a way to explain their absence to your employer. Travis nodded grimly. Buckley will assume they escaped and I failed. Or worse, that I let them go. What if they did escape? Virginia suggested, but only after you delivered them somewhere official. What do you mean? There's a cavalry outpost about 30 miles south of here. Small place, just a lieutenant and a dozen men. What if you traveled there, reported that you delivered the girls, and then they mysteriously escaped during the night? Travis frowned. The lieutenant would verify that. Lieutenant Davis owes this town a favor or two. If I send a message explaining the situation, he might be willing to provide documentation that you delivered the prisoners as ordered. Why would he do that? Why would any of you help me, or these girls? Travis asked, genuinely puzzled. Virginia's expression grew serious. Because not everyone believes that survival out here means abandoning our humanity, Travis. Some of us think the frontier needs more compassion, not less. Her words struck something deep within Travis, challenging the belief he'd held for so long that the frontier was no place for softer emotions. He'd been so certain that caring only made you vulnerable, yet here was an entire community apparently thriving while holding to a different principle. I don't know what to say, Travis admitted. Say you'll stay a few days while Taluta recovers, and I arrange things with Lieutenant Davis. Virginia smiled again, and Travis found himself noticing the light dusting of freckles across her nose. We could use an extra hand with a few things around town, if you're willing to earn your keep. I can work, Travis said quickly, and I've got some money to pay for the girls' care. Good, then it's settled. Virginia stood up. You can start by helping unload the supply wagon that's arriving this afternoon, and perhaps you could join us for supper tonight. My father would like to meet you, I'm sure. Travis found himself agreeing before he'd fully thought it through. As he left the store to return to Dr. Foster's house, he realized with some surprise that for the first time in years, he wasn't planning his next move or escape. He was actually considering staying put, at least for a while. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. True to her word, Virginia found plenty of work for Travis, unloading supplies, repairing the church roof, helping the blacksmith with a difficult horse. Everywhere he went in Valleydale, he was met with cautious but genuine welcome. No one seemed particularly disturbed by the presence of the Apache girls at Dr. Foster's house, and several townspeople even brought food or small gifts for them. Taluta improved rapidly under Dr. Foster's care, and Nasha gradually relaxed her vigilance, though she remained wary around most of the townspeople. To Travis's surprise, she seemed to trust Virginia, who visited daily and somehow managed to communicate despite the language barrier. On his third evening in Valleydale, Travis found himself sitting on the porch of the Faulkner home, after a supper that had left him more satisfied than any meal he could remember. Virginia sat beside him in a rocking chair, while her father, a quiet, bookish man who ran the town's small library in addition to the general store, had retired inside with his pipe and newspaper. "You're good with your hands," Virginia observed as Travis whittled a small wooden horse. Nasha told me you've been making toys for Taluta. Travis felt an unaccustomed heat in his cheeks. Just trying to keep her occupied while she heals. Girls shouldn't have to stare at walls all day. It's kind of you. Virginia's voice was soft in the gathering dusk. They were terrified when they arrived, you know, especially of men. But Nasha told me today that you treated them with respect from the beginning. Travis shrugged uncomfortably, didn't do anything special. But you did. Virginia stopped rocking and turned to face him directly. You chose compassion when most would have chosen convenience. That says something about the kind of man you are, Travis Hollister. The genuine admiration in her voice made Travis more uncomfortable than any criticism could have. You don't know much about me, he said quietly. I've done things I'm not proud of. Haven't we all? Virginia replied. It's not our past actions that define us, but the choices we make when faced with difficult decisions. And you made the right choice with those girls. Travis concentrated on his whittling, unsure how to respond to her faith in him. He'd spent so long believing that the frontier demanded hardness that Virginia's perspective was disorienting. I heard back from Lieutenant Davis today, Virginia said after a moment of comfortable silence. He's agreed to provide documentation that you delivered the girls to his outpost on official business. Travis looked up. Just like that. Well, in exchange for the town delivering some supplies they've been waiting on. But yes, essentially. Why would he risk his position like that? Virginia smiled. Because 3 years ago his wife was desperately ill, and Dr. Foster rode 50 miles through Apache territory to save her life. As I said, Lieutenant Davis owes this town a favor or two. So I could take this documentation back to Buckley, collect my pay, and be in the clear, Travis said slowly. Yes, you could leave as soon as Taluta is strong enough to travel, and we've made arrangements for the girls. Travis should have felt relieved. This was the solution to his problem, a way out with his reputation intact. Instead, he felt a strange reluctance at the thought of leaving Valleydale. In just 3 days, the little community had begun to feel more like home than anywhere he'd been in years. And then there was Virginia. Intelligent, compassionate, and beautiful in a way that went beyond mere appearances. Travis found himself looking forward to their conversations, to making her laugh, to seeing the approval in her eyes when he helped someone in town. What will happen to Nasha and Taluta? He asked. We've sent word to a trading post where some of their people sometimes come. With luck, we might be able to arrange their return safely. Until then, they can stay with Dr. Foster or with one of the other families in town. Travis nodded, continuing to whittle as he considered this. And if I wanted to stay in Valleydale a bit longer, is there enough work for a cowhand? Virginia's smile widened. More than enough. Old Mr. Jenkins has been looking for someone to help with his horses for months, and there's always seasonal work with the farms in the valley. It wouldn't be the same pay as driving cattle, Travis said, thinking aloud. No, Virginia agreed, but perhaps there are compensations beyond money. The way she looked at him then, with warmth and something more, made Travis think that perhaps she was right. The next day, a messenger arrived from Lieutenant Davis with the promised documentation, a formal receipt for 2 Apache prisoners delivered to the cavalry outpost, signed and sealed with military authority. It would be enough to satisfy Buckley and secure the pay Travis was owed. As Travis examined the paper, he realized he had a choice to make. He could ride to Santa Fe, find the Henderson outfit, collect his money, and continue the life he'd been leading, moving from job to job, never staying anywhere long enough to form attachments. Or he could stay in Valleydale, at least for a while, and see if there was another way to live on the frontier. The decision crystallized as he watched Virginia teaching Nasha to bake bread in the doctor's kitchen, both women laughing despite their limited shared vocabulary. In that moment, Travis saw the possibility of a different kind of life, one where hardness wasn't the only response to hardship. I'm staying, he announced, surprising himself almost as much as the women. Virginia looked up, flour dusting her cheeks. For how long? I don't know yet, Travis admitted, but I'd like to see this through, helping get the girls home safely, and then. We'll see. Virginia's smile was worth any uncertainty he felt about the decision. 2 weeks passed, and Travis found himself settling into life in Valleydale with surprising ease. He took a job with Mr. Jenkins, working with the man's horses and helping expand his small ranch. The work was steady, and while not as exciting as driving cattle across territories, it offered a stability Travis had never before considered important. Taluda recovered completely and began helping around Dr. Foster's house. Nasha, initially suspicious of everyone except Virginia and grudgingly Travis, gradually began to participate in town life. The sisters learned more English, and some of the townspeople made efforts to learn basic Apache words and phrases. Travis found himself spending most evenings at the Faulkner home, sometimes for supper, sometimes just sitting on the porch talking with Virginia until the stars came out in full force. He learned that she had come west with her father after her mother's death 5 years earlier, that she had a passion for books, and had actually studied for a year at a women's college back east before family circumstances brought her to the frontier. "Do you miss it?" Travis asked one evening as they walked along the small creek that ran through Valleydale. "The East, I mean, civilization." Virginia considered this. "Sometimes I miss the libraries and concerts. But there's something about this place, the openness, the possibility. Out here, a person can become who they truly are without the constraints of society." "Most would say the frontier makes people harder, not truer," Travis pointed out. "Perhaps for some, but I've seen it bring out extraordinary kindness too." She glanced at him. "Like a cowboy who couldn't bring himself to deliver 2 frightened girls to a fort, even when it would have been easier." Travis felt that now familiar warmth whenever Virginia spoke well of him. "I'm not sure that was kindness so much as conscience." "Isn't that the same thing, really?" Virginia stopped walking and turned to face him. In the moonlight, her face was luminous, her hazel eyes reflecting the stars above. "Travis, Whatever she had been about to say was interrupted by shouts from the direction of town. They both turned to see a rider galloping toward them, his silhouette dark against the night sky. Virginia. "Travis," it was young Billy from the livery stable. "Come quick, riders coming in from the south, Apache warriors. Doc says they're asking for the girls." Travis felt his blood run cold. This was what he'd feared from the beginning, that the war party would track them to Valleydale. "Get back to town," he told Virginia urgently. "Make sure Nasha and Taluda stay with Dr. Foster." "What are you going to do?" Virginia clutched his arm. "Talk to them if they'll listen. They've come for the girls, not to attack. There might be a chance to resolve this peacefully." Virginia's expression was fearful but resolute. "I'm coming with you. Some of them might know me from trading, and I speak a few words of their language." Travis wanted to argue, but recognized the determination in her eyes. Together they hurried back toward town, where a crowd was gathering in the main street. 6 Apache warriors sat on horses at the edge of town, their faces painted for war, weapons visible but not yet raised against the townspeople. Dr. Foster stood at the front of the crowd, with Nasha and Taluda slightly behind her. When they saw the warriors, both girls gave cries of recognition. "That one in the center, with the eagle feathers," Nasha whispered to Travis as he approached. "He is Kitchai, our cousin, a great warrior." Travis nodded, then stepped forward, placing himself between the warriors and the townspeople. He raised his hands to show he was unarmed. "We have no quarrel with you," he called out clearly. "The girls are safe and unharmed." The warrior Nasha had identified as Kitchai urged his horse forward a few steps. "You took our sisters," he said in surprisingly good English. "Why should we believe they are unharmed?" Travis gestured for Nasha and Taluda to come forward. They did so without hesitation, Taluda running to embrace one of the other warriors, who Travis guessed might be her brother or another close relative. Nasha spoke rapidly in Apache, gesturing to Travis, to Dr. Foster, and to Virginia. The warriors listened intently, their expressions unreadable. When she finished, Kitchai turned his attention back to Travis. "My cousin says you protected them, that you turned away from your own people to keep them safe." Travis shook his head. "Not from my people. These people," he gestured to the townspeople of Valleydale, "they've helped protect the girls too. They were going to help return them to your tribe." Kitchai studied Travis for a long moment. "Why would you do this? Why risk yourself for Apache children?" It was a question Travis had asked himself many times over the past weeks. The answer came to him now with surprising clarity. "Because out here we have a choice about what kind of people we become," he said, echoing Virginia's words from their earlier conversation. I chose not to be the kind of man who delivers children to imprisonment, no matter what they look like or where they come from. A murmur ran through both groups, the Apache warriors and the townspeople. Kitchai raised his hand for silence. Nasha tells me you treated them with honor when others would not. For this, you have earned the gratitude of our people. He looked beyond Travis to the gathered townspeople, and this place, Valleydale. Nasha says you trade fairly and respect our boundaries. Virginia stepped forward. We wish to continue living in peace with your people. The girls were being brought here to arrange their safe return to you. Kitchai nodded. Then today there will be no blood shed. He turned back to Travis. But the man who first took our sisters, this Buckley, he is still an enemy of our people. Travis felt a chill. Buckley's outfit is probably in Santa Fe by now. I haven't seen him since I left with the girls. We will find him, Kitchai said simply. There was no threat in his voice, merely a statement of fact that left Travis with no doubt about Buckley's fate if the Apache warriors ever caught up with him. The tense standoff resolved with unexpected swiftness after that. The girls gathered their few possessions from Dr. Foster's house, said emotional goodbyes to the doctor and Virginia, and then, to Travis's surprise, Nasha approached him directly. You are a good man, Travis Hollister, she said in her still halting English. Not like other white men I have known. I'm trying to be, Travis replied honestly. Nasha reached into a small pouch at her waist and withdrew something, pressing it into Travis's hand. It was a small carved stone in the shape of a hawk, worn smooth and hanging from a leather cord. Protection, she said simply, from my grandfather, now for you. Before Travis could thank her, she turned and walked back to the warriors. Within minutes, they had disappeared into the darkness, taking Nasha and Taluta with them. The townspeople gradually dispersed, relief evident in their voices as they discussed the peaceful resolution. Soon only Travis and Virginia remained in the street, standing together in the moonlight. That could have ended very differently, Virginia said quietly. Yes, Travis agreed, still holding the stone hawk Nasha had given him. I've seen what happens when fear drives both sides. This was something I've never experienced before. Virginia looked up at him. And now, what will you do, Travis Hollister? Your obligation to the girls is fulfilled. Travis knew that once, not so long ago, he would have seen this as the moment to move on, duty discharged, complications resolved, nothing to keep him tied to one place. The Travis of a month ago would already be planning which direction to ride come morning. But that Travis wouldn't have diverted to Valleydale in the first place. He wouldn't have seen the humanity in two frightened Apache girls or recognized the value of a community that chose compassion over convenience. And that Travis certainly wouldn't have fallen in love with a strong, intelligent woman whose vision of the frontier aligned not with his old beliefs, but with the person he wanted to become. I think, he said slowly, taking Virginia's hand in his, that I might have found something worth staying for. Virginia's smile was brighter than all the stars above them. I was hoping you'd say that. Travis gently placed the hawk pendant around his neck, then drew Virginia closer. The frontier doesn't have to make us hard, he whispered, echoing the realization that had been growing in him since the day he decided not to deliver Nasha and Taluta to Fort Sumner. It can make us better if we let it. As their lips met in a first, tender kiss, Travis knew with absolute certainty that his long-held belief about the frontier had been wrong. This harsh land had room for more than mere survival. It had room for connection, for community, and yes, for love. He had traded his freedom, as he'd once understood it, for the responsibility of two Apache girls' lives. But in doing so, he'd found a different, truer kind of freedom. The freedom to become the man he was meant to be, with Virginia by his side and Valleydale as the home he'd never dared to hope for. 1 year later, Travis stood on the porch of the small ranch house he'd built on land adjoining old Mr. Jenkins's property. The summer sun was setting, painting the valley in shades of gold and amber. In the corral nearby, a string of quality horses, the beginning of the breeding operation he and Mr. Jenkins had partnered on, grazed contentedly. From inside the house came the sound of Virginia humming as she prepared their evening meal. They had been married in the spring, in a ceremony attended by the entire town, and to everyone's surprise, a small delegation of Apache including Nasha, Taluta, and Kitchai. It had been a powerful symbol of the unusual peace that existed between Valleydale and their indigenous neighbors, a peace that Travis now helped maintain through fair trading and mutual respect. The stone hawk still hung around his neck, a constant reminder of the journey that had brought him here and the choices that had transformed his life. Travis touched it briefly, then smiled as Virginia appeared in the doorway. "Supper's ready," she called, her face glowing with happiness. "And we have company coming. Dr. Foster is bringing that new book from back east that you wanted to read." Travis nodded, taking one last look at the sunset before joining his wife inside. The cowboy who once believed the frontier had no room for tenderness had found not just love but a home, a purpose, and a community. He had traded his solitary freedom for connection, and in doing so had discovered that the true spirit of the West wasn't in its hardness but in its possibility, the possibility of creating something meaningful amidst the wilderness. As he closed the door behind him, Travis Hollister knew he wouldn't trade this life for all the open trails in the world.